Brilliant. Okay, here we go. So I'm going to share my screen, hopefully. I'm hoping you can see that now, which should say about privacy policy and knock your privacy policy into shape. The reason I'm doing this is going to be a quick 10 minutes because I did this with another group recently. And a bit like today, there were 10 people in the room, and I went through 10 points that should be in your privacy policy, and no one in the room had all 10 of them. So it is important that your privacy policy is correct. Why is that important? A, because it should be, of course, but B, because if you have an incorrect privacy policy, it's the first thing the ICO pick up to look for companies when they're looking to who to inspect. So if they find that you've got 5 things that aren't in your privacy policy that should be there, chances are you're going to get a knock on the door, and they're going to be one of the ones that they choose to come and audit. And you don't want to ICO audit, believe me, because they're a pain in the butt. They insist on digging into everything, and they take forever and a day. And inevitably they ask for a document, which is the one document you can't find whilst they're there. But anyway, enough of that. Let's move on. So what we're going to cover, just a tiny bit about me. Then we're going to look at privacy policy and notices, about you, which GDPR and DPA, are you really your DPO, your data protection officer? Do you need a data protection officer? Children, and about them, and how to contact you, and finally, why the date on your privacy policy is important. So, tiny bit about me. You all know me anyway. But these are my drive in life. These are what give me my ambition, and why I'm here really is to provide the best life I can for these 2 little gremlins, who are my grandchildren. Sadly, they're in foster care at the moment, but I do see them every couple of weeks. And Tristan on the left, who's now 8, and Leah on the right, who's now 10. And in fact, I was late for this meeting because I was in a meeting with Children's Services about Leah, because, yeah, let's just say she was a little bit naughty yesterday. But anyway, we will, that's a separate issue. So back to privacy policy. First thing, should you call it a privacy policy or should you call it a privacy notice? Actually doesn't make any difference, but be consistent. So if you call it a privacy policy, then make sure anywhere else in your documentation you refer to your privacy policy. And likewise, if you call it privacy notice, make sure that everywhere you refer to your privacy notice. Otherwise, you get a black mark, essentially. Second thing is about you. The privacy policy should start with who it's for, who it's about. So make sure you include your full postal address. Make sure you include your company registration number if you're a registered company. And most importantly, make sure you include your ICO registration number. Because of course you are all registered with the ICO, aren't you? And so make sure you put the number from that in your privacy policy too. And lots of people don't do that. And hands up, I don't think it's actually in mine at the moment, but it should be there. So that's something for all to do. Then, second question, which GDPR and Data Protection Act is appropriate to you? Because if you only deal with people in the UK, then you only need to worry about UK GDPR and the Data Protection Act 2018. But if you deal with clients in Europe as well, then you need to be consistent with UK GDPR and EU GDPR. And at the moment, the two are basically the same. But as I said earlier, the chances are when the next bill goes through, they won't be. But at the moment, they're the same. But nonetheless, it's important you say which one that is applying to you. And then lots of people say, our data protection officer is whoever it is. Generally, most small businesses can't actually have a data protection officer. Why? Because the law says your data protection officer cannot have a substantial financial stake in your company. And when you think about it, if you're the business owner, you have a substantial financial stake in your company. So you can't be your own DPO. But you can get around that. Just don't call yourself data protection officer. Call yourself our data protection manager, our data protection supervisor, whatever. Just don't use the word our data protection officer because that has specific legal connotations. The other reason you probably don't want to say that you're your DPO is that as a DPO, you have legal responsibilities. And it does mean that if you are the DPO for your own business and your business gets fined, you can get fined as well. So you could get hit twice, and you don't want that. So don't say you are your own DPO. And then do you even need a DPO? Well, unless you deal with a large volume of personal data, and that's one of the areas where the law's a bit dodgy because it doesn't actually define what large volume is. But I would say if you've got over 1,000 customers, you probably need to worry about it. If you haven't got 1,000 customers, I wouldn't worry about it. And if your turnover is less than £234,000 a year, and or you've got less than 5 employees, you don't need to worry about it either. So in most cases for small business, you simply don't need a DPO in the first place. Some companies choose to have one because they like the security of having it, but you don't need to have it. And then we come on to children. If you don't deal with children, if your business doesn't sell to children, then be explicit in your privacy policy that you don't deal with children. You just need some lines in it that say you don't deal with anybody under 16. If you become aware of anyone on your system who is under 16, you will delete all their details from your system, in a nutshell. Why is that important? Because the government introduced something called the Children's Code. And the Children's Code says, in a nutshell, that if you deal with children, your privacy policy has to be written so that they can understand it. Now, I've got a couple of clients who deal with children down to the age of 11, and I have got a privacy policy, which I spent a long time writing, which a child of 11 can understand, and we've proved that by giving it to a few of them and asking them to read it and what they think it means. But once you get under 11, it gets really, really difficult. If you're a primary children provider to children between 5 and 8, you ain't going to write a privacy policy they don't understand. You just can't do it. So you actually end up often drawing cartoons or something to that effect to get the message over to them. But either way, it needs to be in a form that children can understand. And that's a tricky one. So if you don't deal with children, just be explicit. You don't deal with them. It makes life so much easier. And then how to contact you. It's important that your privacy policy includes how someone who wants to exercise one of their rights under GDPR, so their right to look at what data you hold on, and the right to get corrections on that data, the right for a copy of that data, all the things they have their rights. They need to know how to contact you. This is where it gets tricky as well. Because lots of people saying, oh, how to contact me, I'll just put an email address. Great. Actually, no. You have to put your email address, you have to put a postal address, and you have to put a telephone number that you can be contacted on, because any of those 3 methods of contacting you are valid methods of contacting you as far as GDPR is concerned. And I see loads and loads and loads of privacy policies that just say contact data at blah, 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 blah. Well, great, yeah, wonderful, halfway there. But what if I want to post you a letter? And so you have to put all 3. And then finally, the date, and why the date is important. It's very important that whenever you update your privacy policy, you put a date on it that says this policy is effective from whatever date it is that it's effective from. When you do that, however, don't throw away the old ones. Why? Because if I signed up to your site in 2021, the privacy policy that applies to me is that privacy policy when I signed up in 2021, not the one you got now. And if I've got a copy of that and you haven't, and I choose to argue a point on it and take you to the ICO, you're going to have a tricky wicket, because how do you defend what you said if you don't remember what it said because you haven't kept a copy of it? So if you change your privacy policy, always keep a copy of the old ones so that you can refer back to it, because as I say, the privacy policy that applies is the privacy policy when you gain that bit of information. Now that can get complicated too, because if I put yourself in, let's say, Yanis's situation, where perhaps somebody hires a car buys a car on lease from you 4 years ago, and now they update their details and tell you they've got a new address, and in that time your privacy policy's changed, the privacy policy that now applies to that is the new one because you've updated their data in that time. But if you haven't updated your data in that time, it's privacy policy that applied when they signed up with you. So it can get complicated as to which date applies. The important thing is, at least if you've got all the policies with dates on them, we can try and work that muddle out. Otherwise, it becomes a real quagmire. And that, in a nutshell, is all I wanted to say. But hopefully, it's given you some food for thought in what should be in your privacy policy. And I'm going to do a quick sales plug because, hey, that's why we're here. If you'd like me to look through your privacy policy for you and put it right, I'm quite happy to do that for just £97 plus VAT.